Long ago, in a kingdom wrapped in silver mist and ancient forests, there lived a young prince whose heart was gentler than his crown was heavy. He was the youngest of three brothers, and though he possessed courage and kindness, he was often overlooked in favor of his elder siblings, who were stronger, louder, and more eager for glory. One winter morning, the king summoned his sons and announced that the time had come for them to prove their worth. Each prince was to travel the world and return with the rarest treasure he could find, for the one who brought back the most wondrous gift would inherit the throne. The elder brothers rode away at once on fine horses, laughing and boasting, while the youngest prince set out quietly with little more than hope and a modest sword at his side. His journey led him far from familiar lands into regions where the trees whispered secrets and the moonlight seemed alive. After many days of wandering, hungry and weary, he reached a deep forest where an uncanny silence reigned. As night fell, he saw a soft glow between the trees and followed it until he came upon a castle unlike any he had ever seen. Its walls shimmered like pearl, its towers were draped in ivy, and the gates stood open as if inviting him inside. Exhausted and curious, the prince entered and was greeted by an astonishing sight. Dozens of white cats moved gracefully through the halls, standing upright like courtiers, dressed in tiny garments, and speaking in gentle human voices. Before the prince could speak, one cat, more elegant than the rest, stepped forward. Her fur was pure as snow, her eyes deep and knowing, and a small golden crown rested upon her head. She welcomed him kindly, offering food, rest, and safety. Though astonished, the prince felt no fear, only a strange sense of peace. He stayed in the castle that night, and one day turned into many. The white cat, as she was called, treated him with warmth and respect, and soon he found himself drawn to her wisdom and quiet sorrow. They spoke for hours about the world beyond the forest, about loneliness, duty, and dreams unfulfilled. Slowly, without realizing it, the prince's heart became bound to hers. As weeks passed, the prince remembered the task his father had given him and confessed his worry to the white cat. She listened carefully, then smiled and told him not to despair. When the time came to return home, she would help him, though he did not understand how. He trusted her completely. On the day of his departure, the white cat presented him with a small box carved from crystal and told him to give it to his father as his treasure. With a heavy heart, the prince left the enchanted castle and returned to the kingdom. When the three brothers stood before the king, the elder princes proudly displayed their riches, jeweled crowns, rare fabrics, and golden artifacts from distant lands. The youngest prince placed the small crystal box at his father's feet. At first the king frowned, but when the box was opened, a delicate mechanical bird emerged, singing with such beauty that the entire court fell silent. Its song carried joy, sorrow, and hope all at once, and the king declared it the finest treasure of all. Yet, the trial was not over. The king announced a second challenge, and later a third, each more difficult than the last. And each time, with the quiet help of the white cat, the youngest prince succeeded where his brothers failed. At last, the final test was revealed. Each prince was commanded to return with the most beautiful bride he could find. The elder brother set out eagerly, seeking princesses of noble birth. The youngest prince's heart sank, for he knew his love belonged to the white cat. Yet how could he bring a cat before his father as a bride? Torn between love and duty, he returned to the enchanted castle and confessed everything. The white cat listened in silence, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Then, with a voice both tender and resolute, she told him that love required courage above all else. On the night before his departure, the white cat asked the prince to do something that broke his heart. She told him that, at dawn, he must cut off her head and tail. Horrified, the prince refused, but she insisted, explaining that it was the only way to break the curse that bound her. At last, trembling and weeping, the prince did as she asked. The castle shook, a brilliant light filled the air, and when it faded, the white cat was gone. In her place stood a beautiful princess, freed at last from an ancient enchantment cast by a jealous fairy long ago. The princess told the prince her story of betrayal and patience, of years spent waiting for someone kind enough to love her, despite her form. Overjoyed, the prince brought her to his father's court. Though the king was astonished, He saw at once the grace, intelligence, and compassion of the princess. When the three brides were presented, it was clear that none shone brighter than the former white cat. The king declared the youngest prince his heir, praising not only his success, but his loyalty, humility, and capacity for love. The kingdom celebrated for many days, and when the prince and princess were crowned, they ruled with wisdom and mercy. The enchanted forest lost its gloom, the castle of cats faded into legend, and peace spread across the land. Yet the prince never forgot the lessons he had learned, that true treasure is not found in gold or power, but in faithfulness, patience, and the courage to see beauty where others do not. And so the story of the white cat lived on, whispered in fireside tales and bedtime stories, reminding all who heard it that love, when guided by loyalty and trust, has the power to transform even the deepest curse into lasting joy.